This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today once again is the CEO of Soar Financial Canada Corp, Mr. Kai Hoffman. How's it going, Kai?
Oh, it's going great, Gerardo. Thanks for having me back on the show here.
Thanks for coming back on. Every 4 months we get together. We talk about how tough the resource space is. So thanks for your time today.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely not looking as bad as 4 months ago, that's for sure.
Let's talk about that. We were talking off air. We were talking about the Orin Index and how it's actually risen for the past 2 weeks. What does that typically mean to you? What do you see coming into 2019?
Well, I'm quite optimistic coming into 2019. We're just in the middle of tax loss selling. There's no volume in the TSX, but there's definitely interest in the markets, as you can tell. And the right deals attract money. We've seen a strategic deal. We've seen another bought deal, although with Flowthrough, which is going to be a theme for 2019. But there's activity. There's money on the sidelines. I'm quoting Rick Rule here, who's quoting one of his clients, actually, that say, hey, Rick, we got money on the sideline. We're waiting for the right deal to enter. Right. So there is interest in the space. Let's go through this here. The tax loss selling season right now is brutal. It's worse than ever. I'm blaming the pot space and the cannabis space to a degree for that. People made a lot of money over the last 12 months in that space. And unfortunately, the mining side is getting the end of the stick here.
Absolutely. There's three things there, and let's take them in order. You talked about the recent strategic. That was done at a premium. I believe it was something like a 20% premium. The stock reacted by going up, I believe, 4% the next day, despite the premium. And it was significant. It was a $31 million investment by one of the smartest groups in the space. Can you talk about that a bit, Kai?
Yeah, for sure. No, there was SSR Mining investing into Silvercrest. I'm quite familiar with both companies, actually, really well. And yeah, it's probably the first strategic financing I've seen SSR do ever. They usually don't invest in junior companies, so I was surprised to see that financing. I'm really happy for my friends at Silvercrest. I know the group really well personally as well. So really happy for those guys to
Congrats.
get a very nice share price, or a floor into the share price. 370, I think it was, or 373. It was an odd number.
You got it.
So, but the stock was trading at 319 or 320 at the time the deal was announced, and the shares only jumped up to, I think, like 328 or something like that. It wasn't massive. I was a bit shocked, but that also shows that we're maybe at the bottom of a cycle here. SSR felt the need to do that, to step in to secure 9.9%. So it's a good sign, and I'm quite optimistic that we hopefully get to see a couple more of those financings in the future, in the next 6-12 months, as the majors or even the mid-tiers. I think that mid-tiers especially will need to buy up some assets, or position themselves at least, or give themselves the opportunity to snack up some assets.
Excellent. The second point I want to touch on that you just mentioned, you said that flow-through capital and financings were going to play a big part into the 2019 outlook that you have. Why?
I think the best example was last week. Barkerville Gold Mines raising $25 million as a flow-through bought deal. I recently sat down with Sean Rusno of Cisco, and he thinks 2019 is going to be insane in terms of flow-through, based on all the capital gains that all the corporations and all the investors had in 18 and 17. They're sitting on massive tax gains, so they're looking for tax, flow-through or tax-eligible flow-through financings to offload some of those gains. And he said, I'm quoting him here actually, he'd love to drill from Canada west to east, just put a drill hole every 50 meters, and he could possibly do that with all the flow-through money he sees, and he's probably being offered as well. So, and it's not just Cisco that's attracting that money. That's important, but they're definitely the kings of flow-through right now. And hearing it from the horse's mouth is quite, what do you call it? But encouraging, I guess. So.
Absolutely. The third thing that you mentioned there was the crypto space and the cannabis space, making the mining space an obvious candidate for tax loss selling. Do you think those roles will reverse in 2019?
That's a good question, and I pray for it every night. But well, let's look at it. Like, Bitcoin is below 4,000, I believe. I haven't looked at it in recent days. I don't own any Bitcoin, so I couldn't care less, really. It's been overhyped. So obviously, and I was joking on my own podcast the other day, I still want to meet that person who bought Bitcoin at 19,000. So
everybody was raising their hands when they bought in at 1 and sold at 15, right? All the experts are gone now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still waiting for that one person to raise their hands like, yeah, I printed 19,000. So Still waiting for that person, but no, like the indications are there. The gold space. We're seeing it on a macro level as well. If I look just at the German index, the DAX is actually down 16% year to date. People are starting to get nervous. Companies are not delivering anymore. We see earnings in trouble. Our companies starting to get in trouble to a degree. They can't keep pace with the expectations of the markets are. Yes, there's still cheap money around, especially in the EU. The US has stepped on the brakes a little bit when it comes to quantitative easing, but rumor has it that eventually we'll go back to that. My opinion is that the cheap or the lower oil price is quantitative easing for the people. So we'll see some more inflation perhaps because the people would start spending money like crazy again. They can afford longer car travel. So yeah, it all points in the right direction, but I'm definitely not going to make a prediction on the gold price at the end for the end of 2019.
The last time we spoke, and again, this was about 3 or 4 months ago, you mentioned there was a flurry of activity in the base metals, specifically zinc and copper. I imagine that slowed down. Can you chat a bit about that?
Well, zinc has dramatically slowed down, same as nickel. That's almost disappeared. Companies are completely out of favor. I think the trade wars are to blame for that to a degree. The hype that initially was there is gone. It's still, there's still fundamental reasons to own zinc and copper stocks, especially copper. If you look at the EV space, I think that's the biggest driver. We're just looking at stationary batteries are coming online. I'm a bit disappointed that Tesla hasn't rolled out their in-house stationary batteries as massively as I was expecting a few years ago, but that's going to be a massive catalyst for copper. There's some really cheap copper stocks out there right now, but the momentum hasn't reached the space yet.
Let's get right into it. What do you like in the space? What do you like in gold? What do you like in copper? You just mentioned copper. Let's start there.
There's one small producer, really. They produce 21 million pounds a year, but they're also an exploration story because if they had one more VMS lens, they're off to the races. So that's Atico Mining, a very quiet group. It's almost like a family-owned company. But I think they're trading around 32, 33 cents right now. It's an absolute steal. That's something I'm looking at very closely right now. And as soon as I see a bottom forming, I'm going to be buying that one.
Excellent. The gold space. What do you like there?
Actually, I was looking at some mid-tier producers. Wesdome's definitely a name that comes to mind. The stock ran a little bit before the fall started to hit, really. I think we're going to see some momentum returning into that stock. They're having some great results in the exploration side. Kiena is going to be looking better and better every day. That's something investors are going to jump on as well.
I wrote a piece in the late summer, early fall time, maybe September, and it was titled "The Australians Are Coming." And it was the premise was that the balance sheets looked great, the currency fluctuations had done wonders, and that I thought that M&A would pick up and they would get a lot more aggressive. Do you see Australian companies with good balance sheets accelerating M&A in 2019?
I wouldn't be surprised. They've been all over the Precious Metals Summit. You were there as well, if I recall, and we bumped into each other there. They were all over that conference, and it's the best conference in the space, in my opinion, to exactly do that. Send out your corp dev teams and look at opportunities. But we haven't seen anything yet, in my opinion. That's just justifying the miniature hype we've all been creating here about the Aussies. They haven't really come back yet. I know they're sniffing around and they're making. They're doing their due diligence and they're signing CAs left and right, but nothing's happened yet. Maybe the strategic deal by SSR into Silvercrest might be the first one. No Aussies involved, but it might be creating some pressure in the space. That's what I mean. And no. So I think there's a good opportunity. A lot of the gold stocks in Australia have risen sharply lately, or in the last 12 months, and there's opportunity to use that currency, obviously.
Excellent. Kai, I know on a personal note, you have a big move coming at the end of the month. Anything you want to plug? You want to tell everybody why you're relocating and then what they can expect from you in 2019?
Well, we're going to be way more focused on Oran Inc. in 2019. I'll be relocating myself. I'm currently outside of Frankfurt here in Germany to Vancouver. We'll be way closer to the heart of the industry. And obviously, Oran Inc. and all the other services that we provide will massively benefit from that. So stay tuned, and we'll be way more active in 2019 than we've been over the last 2 years.
And the last time we chatted, you mentioned that you had just acquired the company nobodycanpronounce.com domain. How is that coming along? I know that was the pivot.
I got to market it a little harder. It's or nobody can pronounce Oran Inc. So we started to own that name, and the company nobodycanpronounce.com. the domain name we're trying to use and market a little bit, sort of, joking around a little here in the space, not taking ourselves too serious. And, but I'm starting to own that name, Oran Inc. When I took it over 2 years ago, I thought, I got to change the name, got to change the colors and UI, corporate design and corporate identity a little bit. But I'm starting to own it now. I'm starting to like it. So
I love it. I love it. Maybe I should acquire the name nobody can pronounce, as Gerardo del Real does not roll off most people's tongues, if you can imagine that.
I can imagine that. Yes, and Hoffman with two F's, one N, and stuff. People have trouble with that as well. So
There you go. Kai, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Gerardo, thanks for having me on again.
Take care.
Bye.